The scream pierced the morning silence like a knife, and Ryder Brennan's hand went instinctively to the hunting knife at his belt as he emerged from the dense pine trees into a small clearing near Lincoln, Nebraska. It was the spring of 1876, and he had been tracking elk through these woods for the better part of 3 days, his muscular frame moving silently through the wilderness that had been his home for the past 8 years. His dark hair hung past his shoulders, tied back with a leather cord, and his weathered hands were calloused from years of surviving alone in the mountains. But this sound made every instinct in his body come alive with alertness. He moved toward the source of the cry, his powerful legs carrying him swiftly through the underbrush. What he saw when he reached the edge of a rocky outcropping made him stop in his tracks. A woman knelt on the ground beside a fallen log, her dark auburn hair tumbling over her shoulders as she bent over something small and red. She wore a simple cotton dress that had seen better days, the hem muddy and torn, and her hands were streaked with what looked like blood. Ryder approached cautiously, not wanting to startle her. As he drew closer, he could hear her voice, soft and soothing, speaking in gentle tones to whatever creature she held. His boots crunched on a twig and she spun around, her green eyes wide with fear. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "I need help. He is hurt badly." Ryder looked down at what she cradled so carefully in her hands. A young fox, no more than a few months old, lay limp against her chest. Its left hind leg was twisted at an unnatural angle, and blood matted its russet fur. The animal's breathing came in shallow, rapid pants. "Found him in a trap," the woman explained, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged cheeks. "One of those awful steel traps someone left out here. I got him free, but his leg is broken and I think there might be more damage." "I do not know what to do." Ryder knelt beside her, his large frame dwarfing her smaller one. He extended his hand slowly, and she carefully transferred the injured fox to him. The animal whimpered but did not struggle, as if it somehow understood they meant to help. "You are alone out here?" Ryder asked, his deep voice rough from days of silence. "I was gathering herbs," she said, gesturing to a woven basket lying on its side nearby, its contents spilled across the forest floor. "I am a healer in Lincoln. My name is Lily Beckett." I heard him crying out in pain, and I could not just leave him. Ryder examined the fox carefully, his experienced hands probing gently along the small body. "The leg is definitely broken. Might be some internal bleeding too. We need to get him somewhere safe and quiet if he has any chance of surviving." "Can we save him?" Lily asked, hope brightening her tear-filled eyes. Ryder looked at her then, really looked at her. Despite the dirt and the blood and the tears, there was something luminous about her. Her face held a kind of fierce compassion that he had not seen in another human being in longer than he could remember. In the harsh world of the frontier, where survival often meant hardening your heart, this woman knelt in the dirt crying over an injured fox. "I have a cabin about 2 miles north of here," he said finally. "It is rough, but it is clean and dry. I have some supplies that might help. But I need to be honest with you, miss. This little fellow is hurt bad. Even if we do everything right, he might not make it." Lily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of mud across her cheek. "I have to try. I cannot just let him die out here alone." Ryder nodded slowly. "Then we best get moving. Can you walk 2 miles?" "I can run it if I have to," Lily said firmly, getting to her feet and retrieving her basket. Ryder stood as well, cradling the fox against his broad chest with surprising gentleness for a man of his size. His forearms, thick with muscle and tanned from years in the sun, formed a secure cradle for the small creature. "Let us go then. Stay close and watch your footing. These woods can be treacherous if you do not know them." They set off through the forest, Ryder leading the way along paths only he could see. Lily followed close behind, occasionally reaching out to stroke the fox's head with one finger, murmuring soft words of encouragement. Ryder found himself glancing back at her more often than necessary, ostensibly to make sure she kept up, but really to study this unusual woman who would risk herself for a wild animal. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was exactly as Ryder had described it. Rough-hewn logs formed the walls, and a stone chimney rose from one end. It was small, just one room really, but it was solid and well-maintained. Ryder pushed open the door and stepped inside, Lily right behind him. The interior was sparse but surprisingly clean. A bed stood in one corner, covered with furs. A simple table and 2 chairs occupied the center of the room, and shelves lined one wall, holding jars and tins and various supplies. A pot hung over the cold fireplace. "Put him on the table," Lily said, immediately taking charge. "Do you have any clean cloths? And I will need hot water." Ryder laid the fox down carefully on the rough wooden surface and moved to comply with her requests. He pulled clean rags from a trunk and set them beside her, then began building a fire in the hearth. Within minutes, flames crackled to life, and he hung a pot of water over them to heat. Lily had already begun examining the fox more thoroughly, her skilled hands moving with practiced efficiency despite her obvious emotional distress. "The leg is the worst of it," she said, speaking more to herself than to Ryder. "There is some bruising on his side, but I do not feel any broken ribs. The trap must have caught just the leg." "That is lucky," Ryder said, bringing her the hot water once it was ready. "As lucky as getting caught in a trap can be, anyway." "Lucky that I heard him," Lily corrected. "If I had not been nearby, he would have died in that terrible thing." Ryder watched as she worked, cleaning the wounds with gentle hands, speaking softly to the fox the entire time. The animal seemed to understand that she was trying to help, remaining relatively still despite what must have been considerable pain. "I need to set the leg," Lily said, looking up at Ryder. "It will hurt him and he might try to bite. Can you hold him steady?" Ryder moved to the opposite side of the table and placed his large hands firmly but gently on the fox's shoulders. "Ready when you are." Lily took a deep breath, positioned her hands on the broken leg, and pulled. The fox yipped and tried to thrash, but Ryder held him secure. There was an audible click as the bone moved back into place, and then Lily was wrapping the leg with strips of cloth, creating a makeshift splint using 2 straight pieces of kindling. "There," she said softly, stroking the fox's head. "The worst is over now. You are going to be all right, little one. You are going to heal." Ryder released his hold on the animal, which immediately curled into a tight ball, exhausted from the ordeal. "You are good at this," he observed. "Been a healer long." "Since I was 16, Lily said, washing the blood from her hands in what remained of the hot water. "My mother was a midwife and healer before me. She taught me everything she knew before she passed 5 years ago. I have been caring for the people of Lincoln ever since." "Your father?" Ryder asked, then immediately regretted the question when he saw her face close off. "Gone," she said simply. "Died in a mining accident when I was 12. It has just been me for a while now." Ryder understood that kind of loneliness all too well. "I am sorry. That is a hard road to walk." Lily looked at him properly for the first time since they had entered the cabin. He was a striking man, she realized, in a rough, untamed sort of way. His face was all hard angles and sharp planes, weathered by sun and wind, but his eyes were a startling shade of blue, like a mountain lake in summer. His shoulders were impossibly broad, straining against his worn leather shirt, and his hands, which had held the injured fox with such care, looked strong enough to break stone. "What about you?" she asked. "How does a man come to live alone in the wilderness like this?" Ryder poured water from a pitcher into 2 tin cups and handed one to her. "Long story, not a particularly interesting one." "I would like to hear it anyway," Lily said, settling into one of the chairs. "If you are willing to tell it." Ryder was quiet for a long moment, staring into his cup. He had not spoken about his past to anyone in years. But there was something about this woman, something in her open, compassionate gaze that made the words come easier than they should have. "I was a soldier," he said finally. "Fought in the war between the states. Saw things no man should have to see. Did things I am not proud of. When it was over, I tried to go back home to Missouri, but everything had changed. My family was gone, scattered or dead. The farm where I grew up was burned to the ground. I could not stay there, surrounded by ghosts." He paused, took a drink, continued. "So I headed west, ended up in the mountains, trapping and hunting. Found I preferred the company of trees and animals to people. Been living like this ever since. 8 years now." "That is a lonely existence," Lily said softly. "Lonely, maybe, but peaceful. Out here, the only thing that matters is whether you can survive the next winter. No politics, no wars, no people lying and cheating and killing each other over nothing." "But no warmth either," Lily said. "No conversation, no laughter, no one to share your burdens with." Ryder looked at her sharply. "You see a lot for someone who just met me." "I am a healer," Lily said with a small smile. "It is my job to see what people do not say as much as what they do, and besides, I understand loneliness. Even surrounded by people in town, I am alone. They come to me when they need healing, when they are sick or hurt or bringing new life into the world. But they do not really see me. To them, I am just the healer, the woman who lives alone and talks to plants." The fox stirred on the table, making a small sound. Lily immediately went to him, checking his splint and offering him water from a spoon. The animal lapped at it weakly. "He needs rest," she said. "And so do I, truthfully. It has been a long morning." Ryder glanced at the window. The sun was indeed high in the sky now, past noon. "You are welcome to stay here as long as you need. The fox should not be moved until he is stronger. You can take the bed, I will sleep on the floor." "I cannot take your bed," Lily protested. "Yes, you can," Ryder said firmly. "I have slept in worse places. Besides, you are the one who will be up all night checking on your patient." Lily wanted to argue but found she was too tired. The emotional strain of finding the injured fox, combined with the long walk and the stress of treating him, had drained her completely. "Just for a little while," she agreed. "Then I need to get back to town. People will worry." But when she lay down on the bed, which smelled of pine and leather and something uniquely masculine, she fell asleep almost immediately. Ryder covered her with a fur blanket and went outside to give her peace. He spent the afternoon checking his traps and hunting for small game, but his mind kept returning to the woman sleeping in his cabin. There was something about her that had worked its way under his skin in a matter of hours. The way she had cried over the fox, the fierce determination in her eyes when she set the broken leg, the compassion in her voice when she spoke of her loneliness. She was unlike any woman he had ever known. When he returned to the cabin as the sun was setting, he found Lily awake, sitting at the table with the fox cradled in her lap. The animal looked slightly better, its eyes brighter, its breathing more even. "He drank some more water," Lily said, her face lit with joy. "And he ate a little bit of meat that I found in your stores. I hope you do not mind." "Mind? I am glad he is eating. That is a good sign." Ryder set down the rabbits he had caught. "I will cook us some dinner. You must be hungry, starving," Lily admitted. "I left Lincoln early this morning to gather herbs and never made it back for breakfast." As Ryder prepared the meal, Lily told him about her work in Lincoln. about the families she helped and the babies she delivered and the illnesses she treated. She spoke with passion about the healing properties of various plants and herbs, and Ryder found himself genuinely interested, asking questions and learning. They ate together as darkness fell, the fox sleeping peacefully in a box lined with soft cloth that Ryder had fashioned for him. The conversation flowed easily between them, as if they had known each other for years instead of hours. "I really should get back to town," Lily said reluctantly when the meal was finished. "People will be wondering where I am." "It is too dark to travel safely now," Ryder said. "The woods are dangerous at night, especially for someone who does not know them well. You should wait until morning." Lily knew he was right, though part of her wondered if her reluctance to leave had less to do with the fox and the darkness, and more to do with the man sitting across from her. There was something magnetic about Ryder Brennan, something that drew her in despite her usual caution. "I will take the floor tonight," she said. "You have already been too generous." "We will both sleep in the bed," Ryder said, and when Lily's eyes widened, he added quickly, "I mean, it is large enough for two, and you can stay on one side and I will stay on the other. I promise I am a gentleman, for all my rough edges." Lily considered this. In normal circumstances, she would never agree to such an arrangement. But these were not normal circumstances, and something in her trusted this man completely, despite having just met him. "All right," she agreed. "But if you snore, I am kicking you out." Ryder actually laughed, a rusty sound that suggested he did not do it often. "Fair enough." They settled into the bed on opposite sides, a careful distance between them. Lily lay on her back, staring at the ceiling in the darkness, hyper-aware of the man beside her. His breathing was deep and steady, and she found herself matching her breath to his, feeling oddly comforted by his presence. "Thank you," she said softly into the darkness, "for helping me with the fox, for giving me shelter, for not thinking I am strange for caring so much about a wild animal." "You are not strange," Ryder replied, his voice low. "Or if you are, it is a good kind of strange. The world needs more people who care about the small things, the helpless things. Most folks would have left that fox to die." "I could not do that," Lily said. "When I see something suffering, I have to try to help. It is just who I am." "I know," Ryder said. "I could see that in you right away. Your heart is pure and kind. It is rare to find that in anyone these days." They fell silent then, but it was a comfortable silence, full of things unspoken but understood. Eventually, Lily drifted off to sleep, and sometime during the night she turned in her sleep and found herself pressed against Ryder's warm, solid body. He woke at her touch but did not move away, instead carefully placing an arm around her, holding her gently as she slept. When morning came, Lily woke to find herself curled against Ryder's chest, his powerful arm draped protectively over her. She knew she should feel embarrassed or uncomfortable, but instead she felt safe in a way she had not felt since she was a child in her mother's arms. Ryder stirred, his eyes opening to find her looking at him. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, something unspoken passing between them. "Good morning," Lily whispered. "Morning," Ryder replied, his voice rough with sleep. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in years," Lily admitted. They rose and checked on the fox, who was definitely improving. His eyes were alert, and he even tried to stand on his 3 good legs, the splinted leg held carefully off the ground. "He is going to make it," Lily said, relief flooding through her. "He really is going to make it." "Thanks to you," Ryder said. "If you had not found him when you did, if you had not cared enough to help him, he would be dead." Lily made a simple breakfast from Ryder's supplies, and they ate together, both aware that their time together was drawing to a close. Lily needed to return to Lincoln, to the patients who depended on her, to her life there. "What will you do with the fox?" Ryder asked as they cleaned up after the meal. "I was hoping I could leave him here," Lily said. "Just for a week or two, until he is healed enough to be released back into the wild. I could come back every few days to check on him, to make sure the leg is healing properly." Ryder felt a surge of relief at her words. He was not ready to say goodbye to her yet, not ready to go back to his solitary existence. "I think that is a good plan. I can look after him while you are gone, make sure he has food and water." "Would you really?" Lily asked, hope lighting her face. "I would," Ryder confirmed, "on one condition." "What is that?" "That you come back tomorrow. Not in a few days, tomorrow, and every day after that until he is well. I want to make sure you are safe traveling through these woods, and besides, I think he will heal better with you here." Lily smiled, understanding what he was really saying. "I think you might be right. I will come back tomorrow." Ryder walked Lily back to Lincoln that morning, carrying her herb basket for her and pointing out landmarks so she could find her way back to his cabin on her own. When they reached the edge of town, they stopped, both reluctant to part. "Thank you again," Lily said. "For everything." "See you tomorrow," Ryder replied, his blue eyes intense on hers. "Tomorrow," Lily agreed. She walked into town feeling lighter than she had in years, despite the long walk and the lack of proper sleep. Several townspeople greeted her, asking where she had been, and she told them truthfully that she had been helping an injured animal in the woods. Mrs. Henderson, who ran the general store, clucked her tongue. "You and your animals, Lily. One of these days, you are going to get yourself hurt out there in those woods all alone." "I am careful," Lily assured her, but her mind was on Ryder, on his strong hands and kind eyes, on the way he had held her while she slept. She spent the rest of the day seeing patients, delivering medicine, checking on a woman who was due to give birth any day now. But her thoughts kept drifting back to the cabin in the woods, to the injured fox, to the mountain man who lived alone. True to her word, Lily returned to the cabin the next morning, hiking through the woods with the landmarks Ryder had shown her as her guide. She found the cabin easily, and when she knocked on the door, Ryder opened it immediately, as if he had been waiting for her. The fox was even better, hobbling around the cabin on 3 legs, his tail wagging when he saw Lily. She checked his splint, pleased with how well the leg was setting, and spent an hour playing gently with the animal, letting him get used to using his legs again. "He is remarkable," she said to Ryder. "I have never seen a wild animal recover so quickly." "He has a good healer," Ryder said, watching her with an expression she could not quite read. They spent the day together, and when evening came, Lily reluctantly prepared to leave. But Ryder walked her halfway back to town, and they talked the entire way, conversation flowing as easily as it had the first night. This became their pattern. Every morning, Lily would make the journey to Ryder's cabin, and every evening he would walk her part of the way home. The fox grew stronger each day, and so did the connection between them. On the 5th day, as they sat outside the cabin watching the fox explore the clearing on his increasingly steady legs, Ryder reached over and took Lily's hand. She did not pull away, instead lacing her fingers through his. "I have been alone for 8 years, Ryder said quietly. "Told myself I preferred it that way, that I did not need anyone. But these past few days with you, I realize I was lying to myself. I was not choosing solitude. I was hiding." "Hiding from what?" Lily asked, though she thought she already knew the answer. "From pain, from loss, from caring about someone and risking having them taken away. After the war, after losing my family, it seemed easier to just not feel anything at all." Lily squeezed his hand. "I understand. After my mother died, I threw myself into my work, into helping others. I told myself that was enough, that I did not need anything else. But it was not true. I was lonely, so lonely, and I did not even realize how much until I met you. Ryder turned to face her fully, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. Lily Beckett, I know we have only known each other for a few days. I know this is crazy and too fast and makes no logical sense, but I think I am falling in love with you. Lily felt tears spring to her eyes, but they were happy tears. It is crazy, it is too fast, it makes no sense at all, and I feel exactly the same way. Ryder leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, but Lily did not want to. She met him halfway, and when their lips touched, it felt like coming home. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but it quickly deepened. Years of loneliness and longing pouring out from both of them. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together. "Stay tonight," Ryder said. "Not just to check on the fox, stay with me." "Yes," Lily whispered. "Yes, I will stay." That night they made love for the first time, a tender and passionate joining that felt inevitable and right. Ryder was gentle despite his size and strength, worshipping every inch of Lily's body with his hands and mouth. And Lily gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed, Lily's head on Ryder's broad chest, his arm around her shoulders. "What do we do now?" Lily asked. "I have my life in Lincoln, my patients who need me, and you have your life here in the mountains." "I do not know," Ryder admitted, "but we will figure it out. I am not letting you go, Lily, not now that I have found you." "I am not going anywhere," Lily promised. "We will find a way." For the next week, they continued their pattern, but now Lily stayed overnight more often than not, only going back to town when she had patients who needed her immediate attention. The fox continued to heal, and soon his splint could be removed. The leg was still weak, but he could put weight on it, and he ran around the cabin with increasing energy. "He is almost ready to be released," Lily said one morning, watching the fox chase a butterfly through the clearing. There was sadness in her voice. "You saved his life," Ryder said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "You should be proud." "I am, but I will miss him. We can visit him. Foxes are territorial. If we release him here near the cabin, he will probably stick around this area. We might see him from time to time." Lily leaned back against Ryder's solid chest, comforted by his strength. "We should do it soon, while the weather is still good. He needs time to learn to hunt and fend for himself before winter comes." They released the fox 3 days later, removing his splint and opening the cabin door. The animal hesitated on the threshold, looking back at them as if to say thank you, and then bounded off into the forest, his russet coat disappearing into the undergrowth. Lily cried, and Ryder held her, understanding that her tears were about more than just the fox. They were about letting go, about endings and new beginnings, about all the changes happening in their lives. "I need to make a decision," Lily said that night as they lay in bed. "I cannot keep going back and forth between town and here. It is not fair to my patients, and it is not fair to us." "What do you want to do?" Ryder asked, though his heart hammered in his chest, terrified of her answer. "I want to be with you," Lily said simply. "But I also cannot abandon the people who depend on me. They need a healer." "What if we found a compromise?" Ryder suggested. "What if I moved closer to town, not into Lincoln, but close enough that you could see your patients regularly? I could build us a house on the outskirts, close enough for you to work but far enough that we would still have our privacy." Lily sat up, looking down at him with wide eyes. "You would do that? You would give up your solitude, your life in the mountains?" "I already have," Ryder said, pulling her back down beside him. "The moment I saw you kneeling in that clearing with an injured fox in your arms, my life changed. I do not want to be alone anymore, Lily. I want to build a life with you. Are you asking me to marry you?" Lily asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Ryder rolled over, pinning her gently beneath him, his blue eyes blazing with intensity. "I am. I know I do not have much to offer. I am just a mountain man with rough edges and a past I am not proud of. But I love you, Lily Beckett, with everything I am. I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy. So yes, I am asking, will you marry me?" "Yes," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They made love again that night, a celebration of their commitment to each other. And in the morning, they began making plans. Ryder sold his furs and the few possessions he could spare to raise money for building materials. He found a perfect spot about a mile outside Lincoln, a clearing with a small stream running through it and a view of the mountains in the distance. With help from some of the men in town, who were grateful for how Lily had cared for their families over the years, he began building a house. It was not a large house, but it was solid and well made, with 2 rooms and a real glass window that Lily had requested. Ryder built her shelves for her herbs and medicines, and a large table where she could work. He built a bed frame and filled it with a real mattress ordered from back east, wanting to give her every comfort. They were married in late summer, a simple ceremony performed by the circuit preacher who passed through Lincoln once a month. Lily wore a dress of pale blue that brought out the green in her eyes, and Ryder wore new clothes that still felt strange and confining after years of buckskin and leather. The whole town turned out for the wedding, curious about the mysterious mountain man who had captured their healer's heart. When Ryder and Lily exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives, there was not a dry eye in the small church. They moved into their new house that very day, and Lily set about making it a home. She hung curtains in the windows and planted herbs in a garden beside the door. Ryder built her a chicken coop and bought her half a dozen hens, and soon they had fresh eggs every morning. Lily continued her work as a healer, and Ryder hunted and trapped, selling meat and furs in town. They were not wealthy, but they had enough, and they had each other. One evening in early autumn, as they sat outside watching the sunset, Lily spotted a flash of red in the trees at the edge of their property. "Look," she whispered, pointing. The fox emerged from the undergrowth, his leg completely healed now, showing no sign of his injury. He sat at the edge of the clearing, watching them, and Lily could have sworn he was smiling. "He came back," she said, wonder in her voice. "He wanted to see that you are all right," Ryder said, pulling her close. "Wanted to make sure you are happy." "I am," Lily said, turning to kiss her husband. "I am happier than I ever thought possible." The fox watched them for a few more moments, then turned and disappeared back into the forest. But after that, they saw him regularly, a flash of red in the trees, a shadow in the moonlight. He had claimed the area around their house as part of his territory, and Lily liked to think he was watching over them, grateful for the life they had given him. Winter came, and it was harsh that year, with deep snows and bitter cold. But the house Ryder built kept them warm and dry, and they spent long evenings by the fire, Lily reading aloud from books while Ryder carved small wooden figures with his knife. It was during one of these evenings that Lily realized she had not had her monthly courses in over 2 months. She said nothing to Ryder at first, not wanting to get his hopes up, but when a 3rd month passed and she began feeling sick in the mornings, she could no longer deny it. "Ryder," she said one morning as he prepared to go check his trap lines, "I need to tell you something." He turned, immediately alert to the seriousness in her tone. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine," Lily assured him, taking his large hands in her smaller ones. "Better than fine, actually. I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." For a moment, Ryder just stared at her as if he could not quite comprehend what she had said. Then a smile broke across his weathered face, the biggest, most genuine smile she had ever seen from him. "A baby," he repeated. "We are having a baby." "Yes," Lily laughed, and then she was in his arms and he was spinning her around the small kitchen, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "When?" Ryder asked, setting her down gently as if she were made of glass. "Sometime in early summer, I think." "June or July." Ryder placed his large hand on her still flat belly. "I am going to be a father," he said wonderingly. "I never thought I would have this. A wife, a home, a child. I thought I had lost my chance at a family forever." "You have it now," Lily said softly. "We both do." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Lily continued her work for as long as she could, though Ryder worried constantly about her overexerting herself. He became fiercely protective, insisting on accompanying her whenever she had to travel to town or to visit patients. Spring came, melting the snow and bringing new life to the land. The herbs in Lily's garden began to sprout, and birds returned from their winter migration. And Lily's belly grew round and full with the child they had created. On a warm day in late June, Lily's labor began. She had assisted at dozens of births, but being the one giving birth was an entirely different experience. The pain was intense, and she gripped Ryder's hand so hard she was sure she must be breaking bones. "You are doing so well," Ryder murmured, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. "So strong." "Just a little more." Mrs. Henderson, who had some experience with midwifery, had come to assist, and she encouraged Lily through each contraction, guiding her when to push. Finally, after hours of labor, a baby's cry filled the small house. Mrs. Henderson held up a squirming, red-faced infant, still connected to Lily by the umbilical cord. "It is a boy," she announced, her face beaming. "A healthy baby boy." Ryder cut the cord with shaking hands, and Mrs. Henderson cleaned the baby and wrapped him in a soft blanket before placing him in Lily's arms. Lily looked down at her son, at his tiny perfect fingers and his shock of dark hair, and felt her heart expand with a love so fierce it almost hurt. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "We have been waiting for you." Ryder knelt beside the bed, one arm around Lily, the other reaching out to gently touch his son's tiny hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around his father's large, calloused finger, and Ryder felt tears stream down his face. "He is perfect," Ryder said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are perfect. Thank you, Lily. Thank you for giving me this." They named him Robert after Ryder's father, and from the moment he was born, Robert Brennan owned his parents' hearts completely. The first few months were exhausting, filled with sleepless nights and constant feedings, but Lily and Ryder navigated it together, sharing the responsibilities. Ryder proved to be a devoted father, rising in the night to walk with Robert when he cried, rocking him gently in his strong arms while Lily rested. One afternoon, when Robert was about 4 months old and sleeping peacefully in his cradle, Lily was out in the garden gathering herbs when she heard a familiar sound. She looked up to see the fox sitting at the edge of the clearing, watching her. "Hello, old friend," she called softly. "Come to check on us." The fox's ears perked forward, and he took a few steps closer. Lily set down her basket and sat on the ground, waiting patiently. Slowly, the fox approached, sniffing the air. When he was close enough, Lily extended her hand and the fox sniffed it carefully before allowing her to scratch behind his ears. "We have a baby now," Lily told him. "A son. His name is Robert. I wish you could meet him, but he is sleeping and I do not want to wake him." The fox made a soft sound, almost like a purr, and Lily laughed. They sat together for a while, woman and fox, connected by the experience that had brought them both into Ryder's life. When Ryder came home from hunting that evening, Lily told him about the fox's visit. "He is family now," Ryder said, looking out at the forest where the fox had disappeared. "Part of our story. If you had not found him that day, we might never have met." "I think we would have found each other somehow," Lily said, leaning against her husband's broad chest. "We were meant to be together." As Robert grew, he thrived in the love and care of his parents. He was a happy, healthy child with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. Ryder taught him about the forest and the animals, while Lily taught him about plants and healing. When Robert was 2 years old, Lily discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she gave birth to a daughter in the spring, a tiny girl with auburn hair like her mother and her father's blue eyes. They named her Rose, and she was as beautiful and delicate as her namesake flower. Ryder had never imagined he could be this happy, this content. His days were full of purpose now, providing for his family, teaching his children, loving his wife. The loneliness that had defined his life for so many years was completely gone, replaced by the warmth and joy of a house full of love and laughter. The town of Lincoln came to respect and appreciate Ryder as well. He helped when there were problems, using his strength and his knowledge of the wilderness to assist neighbors. He became known as a man of his word, someone who could be counted on when times were tough. When Robert was 5 and Rose was 3, the family took a trip into the mountains, to the cabin where Ryder and Lily had first fallen in love. The cabin was still there, though unused now, and they spent a few days there, Ryder showing his children the wild places he had once called home. On their last evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the fox appeared. He was older now, his muzzle showing touches of gray, but his eyes were still bright and alert. Robert and Rose watched in amazement as the fox approached their mother, allowing her to pet him. "That is the fox Mama saved," Ryder explained to his children. "The one with the broken leg. She found him caught in a trap and brought him here to heal him. That is how Mama and I met. He was hurt." Robert asked, his young face concerned. "Very hurt," Lily confirmed. "But we helped him and he got better. And sometimes when you help someone, even someone small like a fox, it changes everything." The fox stayed with them for a while, and Robert and Rose were allowed to gently pet his soft fur. Then, as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, the fox turned and trotted back into the forest, his tail disappearing into the shadows. "Will we see him again?" Rose asked, her small voice sad. "Maybe," Lily said, hugging her daughter. "But even if we do not, we will always remember him." He brought our family together. They returned to their home outside Lincoln, to the life they had built together. The years passed, bringing changes and challenges, but Lily and Ryder faced them all together, their love growing deeper with each passing season. When Robert was 8, Lily gave birth to twins, 2 more boys they named Samuel and Joseph. The house was bursting at the seams now, full of noise and activity and life. Ryder built an addition, adding 2 more rooms and a larger kitchen. He taught all his children about the wilderness, about tracking and hunting and respecting the land. Lily taught them about healing and caring for others, about compassion and kindness. Together, they raised their children to be strong and capable, but also gentle and empathetic. The fox continued to appear from time to time over the years, though less frequently as he aged. When Robert was 10, they found the fox one morning near their door, lying peacefully in the sun. He had died sometime during the night, his body relaxed and at peace. They buried him beneath a large oak tree at the edge of their property, and Lily cried as Ryder and the children covered the grave with stones. "He lived a good life," Ryder said, his arm around his wife. "A long life for a fox, and he was never alone." He had us watching over him, just like we had him watching over us. He brought us together, Lily said through her tears. I will never forget that. They planted wildflowers on the fox's grave, and every spring the flowers bloomed in brilliant colors, a living memorial to the animal that had changed their lives. More years passed. The children grew, learning and thriving. Robert showed an interest in healing like his mother, and Lily began teaching him in earnest, passing on the knowledge that had been passed to her. Rose loved the wilderness like her father, spending hours exploring the forest and learning to track animals. Samuel and Joseph, the twins, were inseparable, always getting into mischief but with good hearts. When Lily was 45 and Ryder was 50, they became grandparents for the first time. Robert, now a skilled healer himself, married a kind woman named Margaret, and they had a daughter. Ryder and Lily doted on their granddaughter, delighting in watching Robert hold his own child with the same tenderness Ryder had once shown him. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily turned to Ryder. They were both graying now, with lines on their faces that told the story of their years together. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "Your old life, the solitude, the mountains?" Ryder was quiet for a moment, considering. Then he shook his head. "No, that was not living, Lily. That was just existing, just surviving. This, what we have built together, this is life. Real life." "I think about that day sometimes," Lily said softly. "The day I found the fox. If I had gone a different direction that morning, if I had not heard him crying out, if I had just left him there." "But you did not," Ryder interrupted gently. "You did not leave him, because that is who you are, Lily. Your heart is pure and kind, just like I thought the first moment I saw you. That has not changed. It will never change." "You saved me too, you know," Lily said. "I was so lonely before I met you. I did not even realize how lonely until I was not anymore." Ryder pulled her close, and they sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. In the distance, they could hear their grandchildren playing, Robert's daughter laughing as Rose chased her around the yard. "We built something good here," Ryder said finally. "A life, a family, a legacy. That fox, as small as he was the beginning of all of this." "He was a gift," Lily agreed. "A gift that brought us together." As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the sky, they heard a sound in the forest. A sharp bark, distinctly fox-like, though they both knew their fox had been gone for years. "You think?" Lily whispered. "Maybe," Ryder said. "Or maybe it is just the forest reminding us that life goes on, that love endures." They sat together on that porch for hours, holding hands and watching the stars, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way and built a life filled with love and purpose. Years continued to pass, and Ryder and Lily grew old together, surrounded by children and grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. Their house outside Lincoln became a gathering place for family, a home filled with warmth and laughter and stories. Lily continued her healing work well into her 60s, though she let Robert take on more and more of the responsibility. Ryder still hunted, though his trips into the forest were shorter now, his body not as strong as it once was, but their love never weakened. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year, deepened by shared experiences and memories, by the life they had built together. When Lily was 70 and Ryder was 75, they celebrated their golden wedding anniversary. Their entire family gathered, 3 generations coming together to honor the love that had started it all. Robert stood to give a toast. His own children and grandchildren gathered around him. "Most people do not know this story," he said, "but my parents met because my mother found an injured fox in the woods. She could have left that fox to die. Most people would have. But she did not, because that is not who she is. She saw something small and helpless and hurting, and she had to help. And my father, when he found her trying to save this fox, he did not think she was foolish or strange. He saw that her heart was pure and kind, and he fell in love with her right then and there. He raised his glass. To my parents, who taught all of us that love is not just about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It is about showing up every day. It is about caring for the small things, the helpless things. It is about seeing someone's heart and choosing to honor it. Thank you for showing us what real love looks like. Everyone raised their glasses, and there were tears and laughter as the family celebrated the couple who had given them all so much. That night, after everyone had gone home, Ryder and Lily lay in bed together, Lily's head on Ryder's shoulder, his arm around her just as it had been on that very first night in his cabin all those years ago. 50 years, Lily marveled. Where did the time go? Right here, Ryder said, gesturing around them. Into this life we built, into our children and grandchildren, into every sunrise we watched together and every storm we weathered side by side. I love you, Ryder Brennan, Lily said. I have loved you since the moment you knelt beside me in that clearing and helped me save a little fox, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. And I love you, Lily Brennan, Ryder replied. You changed my life. You gave me everything I thought I had lost. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. They drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, the way they had for 50 years. And in their dreams, they were young again, kneeling in a forest clearing with an injured fox between them, seeing each other for the first time and knowing, somehow, that their lives would never be the same. Ryder lived to be 82, and Lily lived to be 77. When Ryder passed peacefully in his sleep one winter morning, Lily held his hand and whispered that she would see him again soon. She lived for another 2 years, long enough to meet several more great-grandchildren and to pass on her healing knowledge to a new generation. When Lily finally passed, also peacefully in her sleep, the family gathered to mourn but also to celebrate. They buried her next to Ryder on the property they had loved, beneath the old oak tree where they had buried the fox so many years before. At the funeral, as the family stood around the graves, a young fox appeared at the edge of the clearing. It sat for a moment, watching them, and then turned and disappeared into the forest. Grandfather and grandmother, Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. They are together again, and I think that fox came to make sure we knew they were all right. The family agreed, finding comfort in the idea that Ryder and Lily's love story had not ended with death, but had simply moved to a new chapter, one where they would be together forever. Their great-great-granddaughter, a young woman named Lily Rose, who had been named in honor of both her ancestors, stood at the grave for a long time after everyone else had left. She was training to be a healer like her great-great-grandmother, and she often felt the weight of carrying on that legacy. As she stood there, thinking about the story of how her great-great-grandparents had met, how a moment of compassion toward an injured animal had changed the course of so many lives, she made a silent promise. She promised to live with the same compassion and kindness that her great-great-grandmother had shown. She promised to see the good in people and to help those who were hurting. She promised to honor the legacy of love that had started with an injured fox and a pure, kind heart. As she turned to leave, she looked back one more time at the graves beneath the oak tree. The wildflowers they had planted so many years ago on the fox's grave had spread, and now they covered all 3 graves in a blanket of brilliant color. And in the distance, she heard a sound. A fox's bark, sharp and clear in the evening air. She smiled, knowing somehow that her great-great-grandparents were at peace, that their love story would live on through the generations they had created, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. The sun set over the prairie outside Lincoln, Nebraska, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold, and the legacy of Ryder and Lily Brennan lived on, a testament to the power of a pure and kind heart and the love that can blossom when two lonely souls find each other in the wilderness.